Welcome back, Playmakers. It's been a challenging week for Jayhawk Nation with the KU men's basketball heartbreaking loss against University of Southern California in the battle to make the Sweet 16. In today's show, our Playmakers crew will break down the winners and losers of March Madness so far, what went wrong for the Jayhawks this season, and a special interview with KU football's quarterback Jalen Daniels. All this and more after the intro. Welcome back, everyone. My name is Caroline Soro. Happy March to all of you basketball fans out there. I would say the events of the first two rounds of the tourney would definitely classify as madness. According to the NCAA, not a single perfect bracket remains out of the millions submitted through ESPN, Yahoo, Bracket Challenge, CBS, or Sports Illustrated. Let's look at some highlights from this week. This week was full of upsets that shocked everyone. Some of the most notable being 15 seed Oral Roberts taking down 2 seed Ohio State 75-72, 14 seed Abilene Christian beating 3 seed Texas 53-52, 13 seed Ohio defeating 4 seed Virginia, 13 seed North Texas taking down 4 seed Purdue, 11 seed UCLA beating 6 seed BYU, and 12 seed Oregon State routing 5 seed Tennessee, all in the first round. The madness continued into the round of 32 when 15 seed Oral Roberts struck again to take down 7 seed Florida, becoming only the second 15 seed to make the Sweet 16 in NCAA tournament history. 8 seed Loyola Chicago knocked off the red-hot 1 seed Illinois. 7 seed Oregon steamrolled 2 seed Iowa. 11 seed Syracuse took down 3 seed West Virginia. 12 seed Oregon State beat 4 seed Oklahoma State. And 6 seed USC got the best of 3 seed Kansas. The Midwest matchup between Loyola Chicago and Oregon State will kick off the Sweet 16 tomorrow at 2:40 p.m. Eastern. Sadly, we will not have any more KU basketball this season, as we saw what was potentially Marcus Garrett's last game with KU in a sad ending to a hopeful season. Later on in the show, Maya Peterson discusses how this promising season came up short with Take a Side's Marina Siever. Blake Sevenbergen recaps his NAIA experience, and stay tuned for Liv Misek's interview of the week with QB Jalen Daniels. Now, let's send it over to Gus Balow as he wraps up the season with KU Sports and Lawrence Journal World sports writer Matt Tate.
Welcome back to Playmakers. I'm happy to be joined by Matt Tate of the Lawrence Journal World and of KUSports.com. Matt, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
You bet, man. My pleasure. It's a good time to catch me. The season's over. There's a lot to do still. That's one of the things that's really interesting about covering this beat and doing it for a fan base that's as excited about KU basketball as the KU fans are. You know, even though the season ended just a couple of days ago, it's never really over. They're already looking ahead to next season. They're already tracking transfers or recruiting or whatever they can figure out. And you know, that's something that I try to do too. So never a dull moment. And, you know, the season's always more fun because games are a good time and you get to break things down and whatnot. But there's something cool about the off season too. There's a little rhythm that comes with it, and it's now upon us.
Where did you feel like the turning point was of the season? Because they had a little up and down season, you could say. They started off, they lost to Gonzaga, but then they won 8 straight, and they were, sound like they were on a roll. And they were finding themselves, and then January hit. You lose by 25 to Texas at Allen Fieldhouse. And then you had, some, tough conference losses. And then towards February, you start to get back up, and then you finish back down. So where did you think the turning point was of the season in respects to maybe when they were, not in in the best position they could have been in?
Yeah, I mean, obviously a lot was made about their defensive improvement, and there's no question that once they committed to being a defensive-minded team and having that be their identity, that was a big part for them. That was definitely a turning point, and that came, right around the start of February. But I think more than that, I think it was the idea that these guys looked inside themselves and found a little pride, right? I mean, they were not happy at all how January went, and it would have been really easy to lay down and just pout about it and say, man, this sucks. This isn't fair. This isn't how it's supposed to be at Kansas. And I don't think those guys did that even a little bit. I mean, I think they talked it out. They talked with their coaches. They went through it. They dealt with it, and they decided that they have more pride than to just let this season get away from them. So part of that is obviously committing to defense and figuring out how to play offense in a way that benefits the team and sharing the ball and playing together and all those things that we wrote and talked about all season. But I think that the bigger picture of that is really just about the pride. I mean, these guys showed they have a ton of pride, and not just pride in themselves and for what they're doing to represent themselves and their families, but also pride for KU. They realize that this is not, losing 5 games in the month of January is not something that the fans want to see or expect to see or are used to seeing. And rather than sulking about it, they did something about it and got things going in a good direction again. And, we'll never know. Obviously the COVID ending was a bad break and bad timing for that to hit. If they had been full strength, would they have had a better chance against USC? Maybe a better chance. I don't know that the matchup would have favored them either way, so it may not have changed the outcome, right? But
yeah,
but that's certainly a disappointing thing. But I think it probably hurt more because they did find their footing and they did dig out of that hole and they did have a little pride that showed they can get back on track and be the team they want to be. So, pride is an important thing in sports and in life and in the world, of course, but I don't think you can underestimate how big of a role it played in this turnaround this season. I mean, it can definitely you can look at it and say X's and O's and all those other things we just talked about. But I think character and pride and just having the right guys willing to do that work and put that time in and really look at themselves in the mirror and say, hey, part of this is my fault. I got to do better, or I got to be better, or whatever it is, that's hard. That's hard for anybody of any age, but especially hard for young kids under a microscope like they're under here. And they pulled it off and they did it and they made a pretty darn good season out of it. So that for me was the biggest turning point when they just all kind of realized, man, we've got to be better. This is on us. It's time. So let's go. And then they did. And then that made everything easy, or easier. But
yeah, for sure.
But yeah, that was a big part of it for sure.
Well, Matt, I appreciate you for taking the time this morning. Stay safe, and we'll hope to talk soon.
That sounds good. Thanks, Gus. Take care, man.
Thank you.
From adversity, we rose. We made history and became pioneers, voyagers, champions, Jayhawks. And when our chant rises, haunting and hallowed, Jayhawks are telling the world what's near. Victory.
Baseball season has begun and the Jayhawks are on a roll, winning 7 games straight as they were looking to extend the lead this week with 8 games against Lafayette, but the game was canceled due to inclement weather. However, tonight, our baseball team is back in action against West Virginia with the same goal of winning 8 straight. We'll keep you updated on Twitter at PlaymakersKU. Good luck, baseball. Moving on to track and field, the team was successful this past weekend at the Missouri Opener, winning in 13 events in their second outdoor meet of the season. starting with junior Alexandria Emelianov winning the women's discus by over 2 meters. Also, one of the freshman 4, Cameron Wilmington, won the 110-meter hurdles with a time of 14:76, while another one of the freshman 4, Amaya McKeithen, joined the top 3 spots in the women's 100-meter, led by senior Jada Caldwell and junior Morgan Mukes. Lastly, junior Tony England clocked her personal best in the women's 100-meter hurdles with a time of 14:45, which she will compete in again this Saturday at the Texas Relays in Austin, Texas. Go off baseball and track and field. Moving out of the Big 12 Conference, our very own Blake Sevenbergen had the opportunity to cover the National Association for Intercollegiate Athletics, or better known as the NAIA Basketball Championship tournament. Blake?
This past week, I had the great opportunity to represent the NAIA as an intern for their men's basketball national championship tournament. I had the opportunity to be around, meet, and learn from some of the best in the sports business. In addition to that, the tournament did not disappoint in terms of action on the floor. In the first round, the number 1 seed, Indiana Wesleyan, was upset by conference foe, the 16-seeded Bethel Pilots. And the men team, their reaction was priceless. Also, 15-seed Carroll dominated William Penn, and 13-seed Jamestown upset Faulkner. The Elite Eight was headlined by the Shawnee State Bears, who featured multiple NCAA Division I transfers. The Bears beat Jamestown to set up a Final Four matchup with St. Francis. On the other side of the bracket, Lewis and Clark State won and would face the Lions from Sagu. In the Final Four on Monday, Shawnee State and St. Francis played a close game throughout until Shawnee State pulled away late. LC State, on the opposite side of the bracket, dominated the game with Sagu and pulled away to clinch a chance at the Red Banner. The matchup was set. On Tuesday night on ESPN3, Shawnee State and LC State faced off in the NAIA championship game inside a Municipal Arena in Kansas City. As you can see here in the corner, wide open 3 for LC State to start the game to take a lead with Colton Spencer. Shawnee State comes right back down the floor with star guard James Jones. Takes the pick, goes back away the other way, layup for 2. Then LC State coming down to cut the lead. Number 32, Tristan Bradley gets a pick, wide open 3 at the top of the key, bang. Then back at it again with James Jones playing nice defense here, gets a steal, and he's off to the races. Coast to coast, we're close, he says. Up high, down hard, big slam for James Jones. And then Jones is going to try to drive the lane again to help build the Shawnee lead. Takes a screen here, drives, misses the floater, but Latavius Mitchell with the big slam for Shawnee State. Then with 8 minutes to go in the game, James Jones at the top of the key, contested 3 in front of Hodges Bailey, dagger for the Shawnee State Bears. And the Bears were able to clinch the first national title in their program's history. Star guard James Jones won the MVP award after a 27-point and 10-rebound performance in the championship game. Shawnee State's coach Delano Thomas won the Coach of the Year award as well. Both LC State and Shawnee State had numerous players as members of the all-tournament team. This year's tournament, similar to the NCAA, was full of surprises like the Kansas Jayhawks season and tournament experiences. Maya Peterson and take-a-side guest Morena Seaver have more. This past week, I had the great...
Thank you. Now, 2 weeks ago, we were in the same spot. We were predicting how far the team would go, what were the keys for them to win in March Madness or at least get to the Sweet 16, Elite 8, and we're back. So that must mean that our predictions were wrong, and they maybe didn't take our advice, but that is okay. I'm joined by Morena Seaver again, and now we're going to do like a postseason analysis to see what happened and why was the season so short. So I'll let you start.
I think, well, it's also very sad that 2 weeks ago we were saying, you know, we think Kansas will at least make it to the Sweet 16, and that didn't even happen.
Right.
So, unfortunately, the season did not go the way we had hoped. But I think the biggest thing all season and in the postseason has been that Kansas doesn't have a standout player. There's not one player that, I mean, you can make the argument for McCormick, you can make the argument for Garrett, but the thing with our team is everyone does one thing really, really well, and we need everyone to do it really well in order to win the game. We win as a team and we lose as a team, and that's very different than the Kansas team that we had taken in, to potentially take into the tournament. Of course, it was canceled last season with Dot and Doak because you just need one of those stars to be on and we win the game. And the reason we were the number 1 team in the country is because more often than not, they were both on and it was perfect. And then you have guys like Garrett and Agbaji and things like that who can pick it up. This year, it wasn't like that. We didn't have a star, and if one person had if Ochai had a bad game, if McCormick had a bad game, the whole team didn't do well because we need them. We need everybody, every game, and we didn't get that. And that's what happened against USC.
I'm completely with you. What I will say is, like you said, everyone does one thing well, but they can't do everything well. So it almost seems as we have a starting five of role players.
Exactly.
And there's no one to say, like, all right, guys, let's pick it up. We have a point guard, but we don't have like an actual point guard that you would see in the NBA or just in general. For me, I compared it to just leadership in general. You know, every single press conference when the team was asked, who's the leader of this team, it was always kind of like, oh, well, Marcus is great off the court. He's good on the court. But no one had a direct person to say, hey, this is our guy. When things get tough, they speak up in the locker room or they speak up in the huddle and just say, let's get it together. Let's get something moving and just go. They don't have that. But every team does. They play with passion. They play like this is going to always be the last game. For me, I looked at Luka Garza and I'm like,
Yeah.
you can tell he wants it. He doesn't only want it for himself, but he wants it for the team. And that's what we need more of. So going off of that, we both said Marcus. And I guess we have to take a little time to say we're thankful for what he's done for this team.
Absolutely.
We're not sure if he'll return next year. We can only have hopes that he does. But if he doesn't, it's perfectly fine. We'll get through it. But we do want to say thank you to Marcus Garrett. And after the game, it got pretty emotional in the press conference.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at what Marcus Garrett had to say.
Incredible, especially with Coach Self. He gave me an opportunity. He changed my life. I'm going to actually be the first person in my family to graduate in May, so I really appreciate what him and the coaching staff done for me and my family over these past 4 years. Just the way he taught me how to be a man, really. Coming from where I come from, you really don't know a lot about being a man or things outside of basketball, but Coach Self taught me everything.
Well, as we saw there, like you said, it's emotional. You can tell he gave everything to that game, and we could tell. Marcus Garrett was the only person that I truly felt during the USC game was like, we got to keep going. We got to keep going. Up 20 for USC, he was still playing hard. So what did you think of the game itself?
Well, it was embarrassing, first and foremost. But again, with Garrett, he deserved better from his teammates. He did. Marcus Garrett did not have a bad game. He led in every category. I'm pretty sure he had more points than anyone else, more rebounds, more assists. And again, he didn't look horrible. It's just the team itself looked horrible. And it's back to you win as a team, you lose as a team. So when the team looks bad, it obviously impacts everyone. But I don't know. I'm watching that game, and I just think he deserved better. And again, like Tyon Grant Foster had more points than anyone else in the game except for Garrett, and they were in garbage time because he was just taking threes. Exactly. It's I don't know. And people talking about how we did of course lose by 34 points. Like those numbers don't lie. But we didn't really lose that bad. We gave up at the 12-minute mark. That was all garbage time from that point forward. We weren't playing hard. We didn't want it. We wanted to get off the court more than we wanted to win by that point in the game. And that's what happened. The Mobley brothers they outplayed us in every single sense of the word, and it was a team loss. That's what I keep going back to. Garrett didn't have a bad game. Again, Garrett deserved more from his teammates. Agbaji didn't show up. Brown didn't show up. McCormick didn't show up. No one showed up except for Marcus Garrett. And so we lost. That's how it goes.
But I think you made a good point about the Mobley brothers. That's who took this whole game, which brings me to another reason why they lost is the three-point defense. Isaiah Mobley, did you see the stats? It's like he's never done this before, but tonight he's hot. And the reason why is because, once again, shout out to David McCormick. However, he doesn't know how to guard a big man. And you saw it during when we played EWU against Tim Groves, who had a phenomenal game, 35 points, but most of his points came from the three-point line. We need a big man that can have paint presence, but also can guard on the line. And we're missing that. And I felt bad for Marcus Garrett because he was able to guard Evan Mobley, who if you compare the two, it's like Marcus Garrett was jumping for his life going up against Evan Mobley, but we needed that from everybody on the team. It was embarrassing, like you said. Like, what are we doing? Is there anything we can do? And even Coach Bill Self said in his press conference, he's like, well, maybe we could have gone to having two big men and with Mitch and Dave, but it's like, it's kind of too late to say we could have done that, or maybe we should have played the zone. These are things we could have made quick fixes at halftime. And overall, it was just, like you said, they looked like they wanted to get off the court. I was disappointed. There are still things that we need to change. For me, I think it's playing with passion. You can have a passion for basketball. We talk about this with sports journalism too.
Right.
You can have a passion for this, but if I can't see your passion, then I'm going to question why you're on the court. And that's how I feel about this team. We need people to play with passion. We We need them to be confident, and we need them to play as a team because we did lack a little selfish versus selflessness at the beginning of the season. We can't go through that again. But what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. And it's possible that we have this exact same team next season, right? If Garrett takes that other year of eligibility and Wilson and Agbaji come back like you said, we could have this exact same team just with more development. So your Bryce Thompsons and your DeJuan Harrises and these guys that were starting out this year, they'll be developed. They'll have, I mean, maybe not fully because we know Bill Self loves to take freshmen and turn them into 4-year starting players like, you know, the Devontae Grahams and the Frank Masons of the world. So not that they'll be fully realized by next year, but they'll have that experience. They'll have had their freshman jitters out and things like that. And I don't know. It is possible that we have the same team next year, but even if we don't, I think the guys that we will have gained experience. They will have gained the knowledge and the team chemistry of playing together for a season. And I just hope next season goes better than this one did. That's all I can really say.
Overall, they'll definitely still have the feeling of losing by 30-plus points to a USC team. That will help motivate them and the incoming freshmen to not let that happen again and to maybe go on. Early predictions, of course, to a Final Four, maybe March Madness, because this is something that we want. And overall, I'm looking forward to the season. I'm a freshman, so my freshman jitters are out. I didn't play a game, but they're out, and I'm excited to see what the team brings. But that's all we have. Definitely, Moreno will be here throughout the season with Playmakers, but stay tuned after this break.
Breaking news. Texas head coach Shaka Smart is currently talking to Marquette about becoming the program's next head coach, according to ESPN. Five-star guard Hunter Salas, ESPN's number 13 ranked prospect, committed to Gonzaga this morning, according to ESPN. And running back Leonard Fournette announced he will be re-signing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on a one-year deal that could be worth up to $4 million, according to Ian Rappaport. Playmakers will keep you updated on our Twitter at PlaymakersKU. And now it's time to talk about the winners and losers of our March Madness bracket so far with Gabe Lehman and Chance Laurie with the Bracket Survival Guide.
That's right, Caroline. Chance and I will be revealing what made our bracket and what busted it.
Absolutely terrible.
Sadly, but this year's March Madness has been historically unpredictable to say the least. A NCAA record 15 upsets have happened before the Sweet 16, leaving 0 perfect brackets remaining after the round of 32.
While many people didn't guess upsets like Loyola Chicago over Illinois or Oral Roberts over Ohio State, I think one thing we all need to learn after these few rounds is that upsets happen, and if you aren't feeling like a higher seed will win the game, then don't pick them.
Yeah, that's right, Gabe. Nobody's safe in March, and a perfect example of that was 15-seeded Oral Roberts squeaking out a victory against the number 2-seeded Buckeyes, then turning around and winning against the 7-seeded Gators. Both are not easy games for the Golden Eagles, but they have proven they can hang with anyone in March.
Yeah, that's right. And after experiencing all of our brackets being broken, we decided to take it to Jayhawk Boulevard to see what students thought about their brackets.
Absolutely terrible. Both the teams that I have in the final are out, Iowa and Illinois. So
my bracket is busted hardcore.
It's seen better days. It started off pretty good. We were hovering around 90%, and now my entire Final Four's out. So definitely could be better.
Loyola Chicago. I picked that one.
Probably Illinois because I had them winning, or Iowa.
I think it was LSU, maybe.
No, I was pretty bummed about our Hawks. Had them winning it all this year. Kind of felt like we were going to be the underdog Cinderella team. But, we're surviving.
I had them getting out in the Sweet 16, so not too bad, but I would have liked to see them go.
Alabama.
Oral Roberts, baby. Going all in.
I think it's got to be Gonzaga.
Gonzaga now I have winning.
Well,
Absolutely
Chance,
terrible.
I think one thing we can say is that our
both the teams
Playmakers
that I have in the
Crimson Team
final,
bracket is far from perfect, just like those of the people we interviewed. As you can see, because our bracket is better than 61% of the population, which is pretty good, and we did have many games that broke our bracket, like Loyola Chicago beating Illinois, USC beating Kansas, and the biggest upset of all, Oral Roberts beating 2-seed Ohio State.
Yeah, that's right. It's pretty safe that our bracket is all we had when this point is Michigan, and it's hard to predict anything in March. I mean, who would have guessed that teams like Oral Roberts or Abilene Christian could upset big name schools like Texas or Ohio State, who both had really, really good seasons.
And looking back on the upsets that have occurred so far, I believe that some of them do make sense or at least somewhat predictable. I think teams like Syracuse, Oregon, UCLA, and USC were all solid underdog choices since they are teams that make it to the tournament most of the time. Experience is definitely a factor in the tournament, especially with coaches. I think it's always safe to assume that teams who have it always have the opportunity to win.
And you can never count out the Loyola Chicago Ramblers. With their huge win over Illinois, this team is dangerous. And if Cameron Crutwig and their three-point shooting can get going, who knows? Maybe they can replicate their unforgettable 2018 Final Four run.
Yeah, Loyola Chicago is definitely hungry, that's for sure. And talking about hungry, I think another team that's for sure hungry is Gonzaga.
Yeah, I agree with you. Their offensive efficiency is off the charts with Kispert, Suggs, Timmy. They're just an offensive mismatch for almost every other team in the country.
Yeah, and I believe they came out of the season scoring, I think, 93 points a game on their average. I mean, it's just phenomenal for a college team.
Well, anyway, we're running short on time for this segment. Well, March to basketball fans means March Madness. March to football fans means spring football. Liv Misek had the chance to catch up with KU football's quarterback Jalen Daniels for an interview of the week. Take a look.
Hey Jayhawks, welcome to the interview of the week. I'm Liv Misek with Playmakers. The 2020 football season for the University of Kansas greatly impacted one athlete in particular. True freshman Jalen Daniels snatched the spot of starting quarterback last season. After seeing his talent on the field, Jayhawk fans want to know more about the man under the helmet. In previous weeks, we've been able to do our weekly interviews over Zoom, but this week we decided to get active and walk our way through Jalen Daniels' personal life and his interests. So we're here at David Booth Memorial Stadium. What does this place mean to you?
You know, it means a lot being able to play a lot of home games in this area. Haven't really gotten the full feel of fans in the building, filling up the place, yelling rock chalk and everything, but it means a lot to be able to play here with my brothers.
Okay, so you're from Los Angeles, California. What is something from LA that you wish you could bring to Kansas?
I'd say my family and my boys. And specifically, I miss my boy J-Rob. Immediate family, of course, I miss my grandma, my mom, my stepdad. Miss them being around me every single day, but life goes on.
Okay, Jalen, so you being a long way from home and your family being a long way from seeing you, have they been able to get out to games with COVID? How has that affected their travels?
Yeah, they made it out to every game that KU let them come to. The only home game that I believe that they missed was the first game, which was against Coastal Carolina, where they didn't allow any fans.
Right, and is it weird there not being as many fans as you've seen, like, while you were getting recruited and everything?
Yeah, looking at the KU games from last year, I seen how it wasn't a full house, but it was a whole lot of fans yelling out rock chalk and everything, and I just can't wait to get that feel.
Right. So enough of the serious questions. Let's kind of dive into more of his personal life and what he likes to do.
I'd say my favorite place to eat is Chick-fil-A. My favorite food is pizza.
Favorite food is pizza. Okay, what do you order at Chick-fil-A?
I mean, we get red cards, so I be buying the whole menu. I get chicken strips, chicken nuggets, and chicken sandwich, the whole meal.
All of it. What would be a celebrity or athlete that you would like to share your Chick-fil-A with?
Share my Chick-fil-A, I don't like doing that. But me, I'll meet Deshaun Watson. He's not getting any of the Chick-fil-A.
You're not sharing?
Nah, unless he's paying for it.
Good answer. So I've heard from many people, including myself, that you have a nickname.
Yeah.
And what's that nickname?
JD6.
And how did that come about?
My boy gave me the official name JD6 in high school, but I always grew up wearing the number 6, so my mom used to call me that growing up.
And last season you were number 17. This
Yes.
season will you be?
I'll be number 6.
Number 6?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, one final question, Jalen. Obviously, we've been walking around Memorial Stadium. Are there any Hall of Famers that you look up to?
Well, one of the people that are on this stadium is my high school coach, Coach Charles Gordon. He came in my senior year and just implemented a lot of stability in the offense in me and just helped me learn a lot of new things.
And is that a goal for you one day to be up there?
My number one mission is to change the culture, and whatever comes with that, but that's the number one mission.
Thank you, Jalen, for joining us today. I wish you the best of luck next season, and I look forward to watching JD6 on the field.
Thank you.
Now it's time for our 2-minute warning with Jackson Bezdek in the studio.
Welcome back to this week's 2-Minute Warning, where we will be going over some of the most exciting plays from the first weekend of March Madness. The first weekend was filled with many crazy plays and upsets, and for sure made its mark as one of the most exciting first rounds ever. To start, let's look at the very first game of the tournament as 10-seeded Virginia Tech took on 7-seeded Florida. Florida's up 3 with 4 seconds left as Naheem Aline pulls up and absolutely buries a 3 that tied up at 64, sending this game into overtime. What a way to start off March Madness, as this was the very first game of the entire tournament. Let's keep it on this game for our second highlight, as we're going to jump to Trey Mann nailing a dagger step back 3 in overtime. Here he is with the ball, gets a screen to his right at the top of the key, step back, and absolutely drills it, puts the Gators up 4, and the dagger 3 at the end. Florida ends up winning the game 75-70. And our last clip, we're going to go to the most talked about Cinderella team in the tournament, and that is 15-seeded Oral Roberts. In this clip, we see Ohio State missing a wide open 3 at the end. Dwayne Washington Jr. couldn't get it to fall as he struggled down the stretch for the Buckeyes, and Oral Roberts pulls off an absolutely unbelievable upset, 75-72. They also beat Florida 81-78 in the second round. Tomorrow they would take on 3-seeded Arkansas to try and continue their Cinderella story. March Madness has brought many top plays, and we want to see what play made you jump out of your seat this week on Twitter at Playmakers KU to be highlighted next week. That's all I have for you. 2-minute warning. Back to you, Riley.
As we announced last week, KU Playmakers Bracket Challenge is in full swing, even though we wish we could have had Gabe and Chance's Bracket Survival Guide. The current standings have the Ultimate Playmakers leading in 5th, followed by Blue Crew at 6th, and the Crimson Crew all the way at 8th. As we mentioned, the stakes are high on who will be pied at the end of March Madness. I hope you enjoyed today's show. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at PlaymakersKU to stay up to date with weekly live tweeting and highlights throughout the week, as we will continue to cover March Madness and keep up with the Big 12's only team left on the men's side, Baylor, and for the women's side, Baylor and Texas. Lastly, remember, it's not about the game you played, but the plays you made. Rock chalk.